Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Simplify SAP S/4HANA Deployments with Policy-Based Automation, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by SAP, Deloitte Consulting, LLP, and Cisco. My name is Steve Paul. I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenters, and later in the program, we'll ask for your feedback. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions about the information presented in this webinar at any time. Just type your question into the text box located at the bottom left of the console, and then click the Submit Question button. We'll answer as many questions as time permits after our presentation. Slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and you can download a PDF copy of our presentation by clicking on the Download Slide link in the resource box in the bottom left of our console. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. And if you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit our webinar help guide by clicking on the Help ? Icon on the bottom right of our console. If slides are not advancing, please press the F5 key on your keyboard to refresh your console. And now on to our presentation, How to Simplify SAP S/4HANA Deployments with Policy-Based Automation. Discussing today's presentation will be Carl Dubler, Director of Product Marketing with SAP, Chuck Geringer, Strategic Ecosystem Group Corporate Development with Cisco, and Sunny Patwali, SAP Technical Architect with Deloitte Consulting, LLP. First, we'll hear from Carl.
Thank you very much, Steve. Yes, this is Carl Dubler with SAP, and I'm part of the S4HANA team here. And I get the privilege of speaking first and covering a couple of basics about S4HANA. I just got a few minutes to do that, and I want to thank Deloitte and Cisco for joining us as well, and all of you for attending. Hopefully, you'll get some good inspiration here as to how you can go about planning for your own S4HANA deployment. Just as a reminder, the reason we're all doing this is because S4HANA is really a different product for us. It's our next generation ERP, and what makes it different, I like to use this little formula to describe how it's different than anything we've had before. And the primary thing is that it's running on HANA, and this is a columnar in-memory database, very different than the traditional RDBMS that we've run in the past. And it gets rid of a lot of the problems that we had with legacy databases that we've run ERP on in the past. And primarily, it provides a simpler data model. So an example that I like to use is in inventory management. Inventory management in previous versions of SAP took 26 tables to do, and now we're down to 1. So when we say HANA provides a simpler data model, we're pretty serious about that. You can actually see a dramatic difference in how SAP is architected, the data layer underneath it, and that simplicity provides a ton of benefits. I'll give you an example here in a second. Another major component that makes S4HANA different is the user experience. And here we have the technology that we call Fiori, our user interface. It's role-based. It's much simpler. It runs on any device. So if a user comes in and they're part of, say, an accounts receivable role, their initial view will be, what they need to do their job. Accounts receivable, it will allow them to start at a very high level and drill all the way down to detail without having to leave that environment. So when you combine these two things, a simpler data model and improved user experience, you get a lot of great new capability. And I want to give you a couple examples of that. The first is a financial example. This is something every company has to do. We all have to close the books. And when you close the books, typically in the past, because of the limitations of legacy databases, we had to have financial information scattered around in a lot of different tables, dozens of them. And so this meant in order to close the books, you had to go in and run reconciliation processes in order to match the financial data and the controlling data, or FICO, together. And this was a very time-consuming, error-prone process that, is the reason why financial close is so frustrating. And you all know, of course, you don't mess with the accounting department when they're trying to close the books, right? Because they're in a very frustrated mood at that point. So we all know that. Well, imagine if you had a simpler data model and you could unify all of that information into one data source, one table. That's what we do. That's how powerful HANA is. It allows us to take something that used to require dozens of tables, most of them aggregates and indices, and run them now on one table. We have a competitor who likes to say that they have something called a reconciliation hub, and they have other data models they add to help you do reconciliation. We don't need any of that anymore because there's nothing to reconcile. Everything's in one place. Now imagine taking that simpler data model and combining it with a user experience that allows finance to start at a high level with financial close and drill all the way down to the base level detail without having to export to spreadsheets or leave the environment. When you have that sort of instant access to all the data that you need without reconciliation, you can actually close the books whenever you want. In fact, it's called a soft close. This allows finance to close the books at any point to simulate what would happen if they did close the books, so they can troubleshoot, find errors, and then when it is time to close the books, they're done with the reconciliation. We had an early adopter customer that actually cut 400 hours out of their financial close process for a quarter. That's a pretty phenomenal thing, and again, it comes with a simpler data model and an improved user experience. Another nice thing about HANA, running ERP on HANA, is that because, well, we have fewer tables to begin with, so there's less locking that we have to do, but we don't need to do, because we're a columnar database now, we don't need to do table locks or row locks. And what this does is allow for much more throughput than we had before, especially for something like inventory management. And in fact, we have Deloitte here presenting next, and this example I got here is actually from a customer that they helped get onto S/4HANA. They had a customer where inventory was, there was so much locking going on at the table level that this customer actually had trucks that had to wait before they could leave while the system did all of the post-goods issue and other accounting things you have to do in the background. And this is actually a pretty typical problem with ERP today. And a lot of people do things like DBA tricks to get around it, or maybe they just ignore the PGI process to begin with, which is no good. And now that problem is gone because we have a much simpler data model. It doesn't lock rows. It doesn't lock tables. And so we have inventory information that's actually instantly refreshed, and those trucks can move along, and the customer can avoid having to pay, all of the carrier fees for delays and all of that go on. So I just wanted to cover this one slide to remind us why we're going through all of this deployment. That when you see all the choices and you see all the effort that you're going to put into deployment, and by the way, we're making it smoother and smoother as time goes by, as you'll see with this information here from Deloitte and Cisco. But this is why we're doing this. This is why we're going through this effort, because S/4HANA is different. This is not just another maintenance pack that we're doing on an old legacy database. This is something completely different that's going to provide productivity to your business that ERP has not been able to do before. The product itself is ready across all lines of business, and sometimes we get some confusion around this because, we keep updating S/4HANA. We do every year, and so people sometimes think it's just for finance, or we don't have any other lines of business that we cover yet, and that's not true. S/4HANA is ready across all of these lines of business, and so I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that we cover all of these different lines of business, that we're ready today to do this. You can deploy S/4HANA now. There's no reason to wait. It's not like there's some functionality that, we're holding back or anything like that. We do have a yearly update cycle for S/4HANA where we continue to improve all of these lines of business. And that begins for us, the last major update was back in November of 2015. The next one is coming up in October of this year. So for the on-premise version, we do that yearly update. For the cloud versions of S/4HANA, those are quarterly updates that we do. but for the on-premise version, which is probably where most of you are looking right now, you can actually deploy this now across all the lines of business and then look forward to those updates coming once a year. I'm going to move ahead here to the discussion about the choices you have for adoption paths. And there's basically three options you have for doing S/4HANA. And the technology that you're going to see here coming up in a minute here from Deloitte and Cisco can help you with any of these adoption paths. You might choose to do a new implementation of S/4HANA. And this is where you actually stand up a brand new S/4HANA system and then migrate the data from your legacy system over. This could be, the legacy system could be a legacy SAP system that you've been running, or it could be from some other company, some other ERP vendor. Could be, we've actually seen a company deploy S/4HANA that was previously running on a massive collection of spreadsheets. So whatever your legacy system is, you could then use the tools to move the data over into S/4HANA. We actually have seen some long-time SAP customers use this method as well because their ERP system, their SAP ERP system, had so much stuff in it that they didn't want to carry over into S/4HANA that they just did it as a new implementation. If you have an existing ERP system from SAP, notably something that's ECC6, you can actually do a system conversion. That's the middle option here, where you basically take that existing system and convert it to run on S/4HANA. This is for people that want to continue on-premise, perhaps, and they don't want to do a new deployment. They'd rather just take what they have now and convert it over to S/4HANA. This requires that you be on ECC6. It doesn't matter what enhancement pack you're on. You can start from any enhancement pack with ECC6, and it does require that you be on Unicode for your data types. So those are the requirements for that. Now, admittedly, that is a big leap of faith, right? When you're doing that, you're taking your existing system and you're converting it over to S/4HANA, and many of you might be in an environment where the people who own those ERP systems, maybe they're subsidiaries or maybe they're in different countries, and they're not ready for whatever reason to do this. There's a third way that's low risk that you can get S/4HANA into your environment, and that is through something we call a landscape transformation. So the primary example of that is something called central finance. So I mentioned that example earlier about closing the books and all of the wonderful capabilities that we have with finance. So maybe you decide that your strategy is to introduce that to your organization first. And then what you can do is take the data from all of those other ERP systems you have out there, whether they're SAP or not, and bring them into a central instance of S/4HANA just to do finance. What this does is allow you to get S/4HANA into your organization, provide some benefits for the finance department right away, but you don't need to go fight the battle with all those owners of the ERP systems to get them to do the conversion. So there's a number of different ways that you can do this, a number of different strategies that are available to you to go to S/4HANA. And I think regardless of the strategy that you pick, you need to have a tool set that's going to help you do this in a way that is up to standards, that's following best practices, that's auditable, and that is as automated as much as possible. And so that is why I'm excited to hear about this policy-driven automation that we have from our partners at Deloitte and Cisco. Because regardless of the strategy you choose, I think what you're going to see here is there is a way to bring a lot of the best practices and you know the commonalities that we all need to have with an S/4HANA system, and to try to automate this as much as possible. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Sunny from Deloitte. And Sunny, welcome, and I look forward to seeing more about this solution that you guys have.
Sure. Thank you, Carl. Hello, everyone. I'm Sunny Patwari with SAP Tech, with Deloitte Consulting. I will take you through this journey of policy-driven automation and innovation, which will help simplify S/4HANA deployment and any SAP solution. Let's move on. So, in today's world of fast-paced IT and business growth, What business wants is a faster deployment, a shorter implementation cycle with all security and governance around it. We have talked about HANA and S4HANA, which brings a technology innovation, but at the same time, they want a faster deployment process to help business benefit from it. So as companies embark on digital transformations, there is a need to have scalable and flexible IT infrastructure with faster deployment to meet business requirements. Companies are looking to reduce overall cost of implementation and maintenance with shorter implementation cycle. Along with lower cost and faster deployment, there is a need of security and governance and quality of service for a successful digital transformation. In all this business need, what IT wants is an ease of deployment, is to simplify the provisioning and deployment of SAP solutions like SAP S4HANA and SAP Landscape without worrying about scalability, security, governance model around the landscape. But with all these complexity in IT innovation, what IT gets is this complex architecture and design, a very complex design and architecture of network, infrastructure, and application to achieve performance, security, availability, and scalability. Different teams in IT collaborate to design and execute this complex landscape over the period of weeks and months. SAP HANA and SAP S4HANA brings technology innovation, but traditional deployment approach and provisioning of application and infrastructure increases the risk, total cost of ownership, and maintenance complexity. To simplify this, we have our policy automation solution, which we'll talk about very soon. If you see the current model, what we have for SAP HANA and S4HANA deployment, we have appliance and TDI. Appliance model brings ease of deployment with bundled hardware and fast implementation, but at the same time, it limits flexibility and agility. On the other hand, we have TDI model that provides more flexibility and scalability, but at the same time, it's customer ownership to deal with compute, network, storage providers. It's all customers' ownership to have successful implementation of this in the TDI model. So if you see, currently we have appliance model which is easy to implement. You have an appliance ready to plug in your environment and get up and ready, but with the limitation of how frequently you can change that hardware, or if you want to upgrade that hardware, if you want to add something, memory or CPU or whatnot. TDI gives you that flexibility, but again, it gives you more ownership on customer side. So we have been doing so many implementations, so many deployments, but still there are like core business challenges and IT challenges which we deal with, like deployment time. Customers always want to reduce the deployment time for SAP HANA or SAP S4HANA across the board. In this manual deployment process, these are erroneous sometimes, and they further delay the process of deployment, and there are costs attached to it. Complex and repetitive approach to deliver TDI compliant systems. So as I said, we are talking about tailored data center, but it brings a lot of ownership, a lot of communication between your network provider, your storage provider, your other vendors, and customers own that piece and to make it successful. And on top of all these challenges, the biggest challenge IT is facing right now, and is governance and innovation of governance and security around this innovation. Right. So if you see our problems, across S4HANA deployment is cost, manual erroneous process, and security and governance around this. So what is the solution for this? And here we came back we worked with Cisco and SAP to come back with this policy-driven application and infrastructure delivery. Using the power of programmable infrastructure, pioneering technical co-innovation of Deloitte, SAP, Cisco, and Vnomic to use the latest software-defined everything technologies to accelerate the digital transformation on cloud or on-premise. The solution orchestrates policy-driven application and infrastructure delivery. This will simplify the provisioning and governance of SAP solutions like SAP S/4HANA. Using the policy-driven pre-configured solution, we anticipate bringing environment in hours and days versus weeks and months of cycle time. This solution provides agility in the way we architect clients' SAP landscape. Zero-touch, policy-driven delivery and governance of pre-configured SAP landscape will help in a successful digital transformation. So if you see here, we have all the 4 partners bringing in a consolidated solution to have a rapid deployment, secure and auditable infrastructure, scalable and fully automated with a single touch. So if you see, Deloitte brings the pre-configured solution and the policies which we have worked over years and years. Cisco, UCS, and ACI brings the infrastructure to make it possible. SAP S/4HANA innovation has really changed the game in current market. As Carl talked about it, that from 26 tables, we are talking about 1 table. So with all these innovation at every layer, Vnomic helps us to automate all these 3 layers. So we'll talk about it, obviously, in a demo soon. You'll see a demo, and we'll walk you through what exactly is the solution. So this screen gives you some glance on what exactly is my policy-driven deployment process. This is as simple as doing an online shopping. So customers will be given a list of SAP components as a service catalog. They have to just choose one of them and click on deploy. The deployment screen gives the pre-populated list of parameters which can be customized as needed. And we'll cover obviously in demo, but if you see the screen, it's as simple as any online site where you go and choose your product, what do you want to deploy. Next screen, it gives you that, these are the options you have for this product. So this product gives you like which HANA model you want to implement, which HANA version you want to implement, what is the, do you want high availability? Do you want to install this as a production system? Do you want to install this as a non-production system? So it covers all the layers, starting from infrastructure, network, application, and database. So with all SAP S/4HANA innovation, we bring another layer of innovation on top of it to have a successful and a faster deployment. So we talked about appliance and a TDI model for SAP HANA and SAP S/4HANA deployments. We also saw advantages and limitations in both the models. Policy-driven deployment addresses limitations on both the models. Leveraging programmable infrastructure to orchestrate and deploy a secure, easy, flexible, and auditable SAP landscape with a zero touch. The solution brings ease of deployment, like an appliance, and flexibility, like TDI. Policy-driven delivery and governance not just automates this deployment process, but also brings a wrapper around it for security, governance, and auditability for any SAP deployment process. So if you see, we talked about our policy-driven solution. So overall, the benefits are obviously the accelerated deployment. The deployment time is reduced to hours and weeks instead of months. Automation is not just for deployment. There is an automation layer which takes care of monitoring and alerting. So in case you start deployment, you can just go and walk around if there is an error, if there is any, it will alert you that there is some issue at this layer. So it brings automation at monitoring and alerting layer of the solution. It brings scalability, that since this is everything on virtual platform, it brings scalability to scale your landscape as much as you want, up to what is supported. So apart from not just accelerated deployment and monitoring and administration, it brings security and governance around this whole model. It brings policies, industry-based policies, which we have acquired over the period of years with Cisco and SAP, and we are working collaboratively to design those industry-based policies and include this in this solution. We'll quickly run through a demo, and obviously I'll keep talking about the screen. At the end, I'll go through some more details about this demo. So if you see, this is the Vnomic automation layer. We just log into this console with our given user ID and password. It brings you up to a screen. On the left-hand side, you can see service catalog, deployments, your users, your customers. It gives you all the details around your deployment. What you have to do is simply go to service catalog. You will see the list of SAP HANA, SAP S4HANA, all the components. Click on SAP S4HANA or any one of them and click deploy. On the next screen, you can see 90% or 100% of things are pre-populated. If you want to change something, you can, like version of HANA, size of HANA, is it a highly available system? Is it a productive system? What is the application server size? Is it like 2 CPU or 4 CPU? What will be the SID name? You choose whatever you want and click next. It by the way defaults the password as well. If you want to change your password, you can. There is a standard password provided to it. It defaults that as well. On the next screen, it gives you details around what exactly it's going to deploy. And then at the final screen, you have to just put a quick description that, okay, what is the description? Is it a dev S4HANA or production S4HANA? What exactly is this? And then you have to select the hardware you want to deploy on. There are like multiple hardwares you can see. You can just select one. You can go through more details. What is the network? What is the infrastructure where I'm going to be deployed? And in a summary screen, you will see what exactly is being deployed as, a kind of 4-liner. As soon as you click on finish, the deployment starts. So if you go in deployment, you will see on CLT1, this solution is being deployed. S4HANA is being deployed. You select any of the log and go to activity monitor. You will see a bunch of activities running and finishing, and it will keep showing you the exact status. There are more than 2,000 to 4,000 activities which runs in background, which you will not realize. You have to just say finish, and you just done. As soon as it is finished, you can come back to the screen and check was my how was my deployment done, how much time it took, and you can start logging into S4HANA application right away. I mean, everything, all the application database there is done. So if you see right now, I came back and I checked that my deployment was done. I checked the starting time and finishing time. Everything looks healthy, and it was successfully deployed. On the right-hand side, you can see on the top what is my IP for HANA, what is my IP for, application layer, which can be used to log into the system. So I prepared the Fury Launchpad, and if you see this, and this is the one which I deployed. We just launched the Fury Launchpad with the user ID and password, and you are all in. So whatever technology innovation we talked about S4HANA, you can all harness in hours now. And parallelly, you can log in and check your SAP GUI login, and yes, it is working fine. You are logged into S4HANA. So this was the whole demo, and let me talk about a little more about it. So what it brings to the table, if you see, at the end of the day, what we do in our normal traditional deployment approach is we go through a hardware procurement cycle, we go through hardware design, network design, architecture of SAP, and all those layers, right? And that is not a week or a day activity. We go through our design phase, we go through our rigorous discussion with client that, we need to implement this, how to go about it. But this tool, this solution, brings you the benefits of deploying this in hours. Everything is pre-configured. So we bring, from Deloitte, we bring pre-configured solution, industry-based solution. Cisco brings their infrastructure. Vnomic brings automation. And obviously, SAP S/4HANA, which is the digital core for our digital transformation, which will be the future for ERP. Now we are talking about hours of financial closure. The same way we'll talk about hours of deployment. So this was the demo, and I wanted to just go through this to show that your architecture level of discussions can be done on a screen where you talk about, oh, you know what, I want to select high availability. You know what, I want to go with 8 terabytes of system. I want to go about a production system. I want to go about a dev system. I want to have an application of 4 CPU and 24 gig RAM. I mean, all those things which you choose, which you do a kind of discussion over the period of weeks, now you're doing over a single screen. So that was a policy-based automation from Deloitte, SAP, Cisco, and Vnomic. Now I'll pass it on to Chuck for the next slide.
Thanks so much, Sunny, and thank you very much for the demonstration and the overview of the capabilities. I just have a few points I want to close with, and then I think we're going to allow for some questions in the tool here. Again, my name is Chuck Geringer. I'm part of Cisco, and have been working very closely with Deloitte and SAP around this solution to simplify S/4HANA deployment. So very, very quickly, the innovation that we're trying to give you a preview of here today, that around simplifying S/4HANA deployments, it's really enabled by a couple innovations that Cisco has been working on over the last decade. Specifically, this concept of software-defined infrastructure, software-defined networking. You hear a lot about where Cisco is a leader with our Nexus and ACI products. The concept of stateless computing and being able to program service profiles into UCS. These technologies, they're terrific technologies, and we've been working on them for years. But the ability to now leverage automation and orchestration to program them to simplify your deployments of SAP has been a real focus for Cisco. We've been working on this solution now specifically with S/4HANA, but for folks, we're working across the entire SAP portfolio, the entire HANA portfolio. So we're able to automate different applications such as Business Warehouse on HANA, different analytical applications that are running natively within HANA. And we're expanding this automation capability even farther with working closely with SAP around the HANA Data Platform and extensions that they're making to things like HANA Vora. So there's a whole library of applications there and automation, and we're really focused on, the most popular applications that SAP is deploying for their customers. And the beautiful thing about this automation is it's highly customizable. We're exposing parameters, and even though we're automating a lot of the common tasks, we're exposing customization parameters so that you can have that flexible, scalable deployment that's required for an SAP application. The second part is that this solution, even though it runs on Cisco, it doesn't require anything special from an infrastructure. It runs on our most popular and the most popular HANA platforms out there, things like vBlock from VCE and Cisco, and things like FlexPod. So this solution does not require any specialized hardware and can be used to automate infrastructure that you may already be deploying, already best-in-class infrastructure. In addition, we're also working very closely with Deloitte to make this solution available on what we call the Deloitte Cloud for SAP. So this is a new way to deploy SAP applications in partnership with Cisco and Deloitte, where the infrastructure can be deployed as a service, one-stop shop from Deloitte. So we're very flexible as far as capabilities that you want to deploy, very flexible as far as what your deployment options are for this policy-based automation approach. So what are some next steps? I mean, obviously we gave you a very high level and kind of short preview or kind of taste of some of the automation and the demonstration by Sunny today. We've set this capability up in both SAP's labs and at Cisco labs and Deloitte labs. So we invite you, if you're interested in learning more about this and how this automation approach can benefit your S4HANA deployment, we can do a test drive, kind of a mini proof of concept, so that you can understand, well, you know, how can automation benefit your S4HANA deployment? What are some of the capabilities that we might be able to simplify, and what are some of the benefits that we described around, you know, ensuring that you meet the various security, governance, compliance requirements of your deployment. We're also working closely with Deloitte that we can come and evaluate your infrastructure on-premise, understand dependencies, and really build a deployment roadmap with you around your S4HANA deployment. And we'd be glad to do a scoping of that if that's of interest. And then obviously we can, you know, go end-to-end working closely amongst all three companies to set up the solution and automate the full deployment. So really a variety of ways for us to do a deeper dive, so you can understand how leveraging this single-click or simplified method of deployment S4HANA can benefit your organization. And then finally, for folks who want to just learn a little bit more on their own, maybe see some customer testimonials, we have a variety of websites. I'll talk about Cisco's first. So just very simply, it's cisco.com/go/SAP, and there you'll read some white papers, some industry analyst reports about this capability, learn about customers that are using our leading portfolio of SAP solutions, SAP HANA solutions. And we also have, obviously, Deloitte and SAP to learn more about S4HANA and about Deloitte's capabilities. So with that, that I think comes to the end. I don't know, Steve, if you want to take it away there. I think that's all we have for today.
Okay, very good. Excellent presentation, gentlemen. Demo as well. We're going to go to our audience Q&A, but before we do that, we'd like to ask our audience to please fill out a feedback form survey that is now appearing on your desktop. To complete this form, just press the Submit Answer button at the bottom of the page, and we thank you in advance for filling out this form. Your participation in our surveys allow us to serve you better in the future. And now on to the question and answer portion of our event. As a reminder, to participate in the Q&A, just type your question into the text box on the bottom left of our console and press the Submit button. We do have a number of good questions, so let's try to take it away here. Kamaraj has a question regarding is S4HANA policy-based solutions. Can they support SMB customers? Is it affordable? We'd like to take that.
I can take that, Steve, if that's all right. This is Chuck Gehringer. So the question was, by taking the policy-based automation approach, is it affordable? And the answer is absolutely. You know, the way the automation software is marketed and priced, it's based on you know, the size and complexity of your implementation. So it's actually very scalable by the use and what your landscape configuration is. So it fits a variety of models. And then, you know, we're also seeing SMB customers looking at hosted or, you know, potentially Deloitte cloud type options. That's a really terrific opportunity to kind of change the economics and change potentially the risk profile and make things even more simple to deploy, especially for SMBs.
Okay, thank you. Another question here. Is policy-based automation currently only available on Cisco infrastructure? Maybe Chuck?
So that's a great question. I guess I would answer. Unfortunately, the answer is no. At Cisco, we'd love to say it only works for Cisco infrastructure because obviously we're very proud of it. The solution is entirely open. It works with, as an example, different third-party tools that obviously works even in public cloud environments, things like that. So it's entirely open. But what we've done is we've, by leveraging some of the capabilities of Cisco and, from the support, we've added some extra capabilities, but it's an entirely open solution and can work on a number of different environments.
Great. Let's see. Jennifer has a question here. Does the automation add additional cost to the infrastructure to implement? Maybe Chuck or Sunny take that one.
Sure. So we are working very closely with a third-party company that we did the demonstration of called Vnomic, and there is a license and support fee for the software. It does not add any extra infrastructure cost. We're automating our best-in-class, what we believe is our best-in-class, Cisco-based solutions for SAP. So there is no additional hardware, but there is a software license cost, and you balance that with time, simplicity, and some of the capabilities by leveraging automation for your deployment.
Thank you. Let's see. Question for Carl. With S4HANA, does it cover CRM and SRM?
Sure, I can cover that, of course. So if I may, let me just go back to this picture I showed earlier. And so here's a common question we get with S4HANA, and it's a good question that I probably raised when I mentioned S4HANA covers all of these business processes. And so the question is, what if I have solutions that have traditionally been outside of ERP, like CRM and supplier relationship management and all of those things? And so what I'd like to do is just take a moment here to add a bit more detail to understand, what's in scope and how S4HANA is organized. So if we, I found another slide here we'll put up on the screen. If we look at S4HANA, there's really three layers to it. We have, if we start here at the bottom, in this dark blue color, we have enterprise management, and this is really the core of ERP, and these are processes that have been rebuilt to take advantage of that simpler data model and the improved user experience that I mentioned earlier. So anything that's in that core is really what's been, you might say, HANAified is a good way of putting it. It's been rebuilt to take advantage of HANA. Then we have S4HANA products that are separately licensed, that are optimized for HANA, and they'll become embedded into S4HANA. They'll become part of the core, and that's what we have in this lighter blue color. And then this gray color, these are solutions that we have that are usually deployed alongside S4HANA, or maybe they are something in the cloud that we integrate with, like SuccessFactors for human resources, or maybe Ariba for SRM. And so if I give you another example here about how this is organized, and this is, again, this is a lot of text here, but this is just to illustrate that point. So we have the core, we have kind of the add-on products, and then the things available in the suite. Our goal is to keep bringing things down this stack so that there's fewer things for you to manage in IT. So in the supply chain example, this is really showing just the supply chain aspect of it. You can see what we have now that has been rebuilt to become part of this S4HANA product. So we have with the basics at the bottom here, inventory management, material evaluation, MRP, available to promise, shipping, receiving, and so forth. These are the core things that you need to run inventory management. But then if you wanted advanced rules base, that's part of it as well. And then these other things up here in the suite, these are products that integrate with S4HANA, that run with S4HANA with no trouble, but these products themselves maybe haven't been rebuilt to take advantage of HANA yet. So let's take an example like transportation management. You can see here that that's part of this extended suite here. It integrates with S/4HANA. It works with S/4HANA. If you use transportation management and you go with S/4HANA today, everything's still going to work, but this transportation management section is still running on the old code line. Well, if you look down in the future a bit, you can see that transportation management actually comes down here into the core. You can see on the very far right in the light blue, there it is now. That is something we plan to do. So transportation management then will be one less piece of the architecture that you have to manage. It will actually become part of that core, and that way you don't have to have a separate system to run it. So that is how S/4HANA is organized, and this will be the case with any of our lines of business, whether it's human resources or customer planning and operations, sales support, and so forth, is that we plan to continue to bring this closer and closer to the core to have that organized. So I thought I would just show that to you since we have a few extra minutes, so that those of you who've been asking questions of me about is SRM part of it? Yes, it is. Is the exact module you want to run, is that going to be part of the S/4HANA code line? It could be that it is now. It could be that it's something that's in the future. But regardless, if you go to S/4HANA now, the functionality that you're using today will still be integrated and still work. It's just a question of what has been brought into the new code line. So, Steve, I'll turn it back over to you for the next question that we might have there, and I'll put it back on the slide that we were on here just a minute ago.
Alrighty. Shu wants to know, does it mean that Deloitte Cloud is TDI certified by default? Is that something Sunny wants to take?
Yeah. So I just answered that. So we are working with our infrastructure partners, and those infrastructure is TDI certified, yes.
Okay, thank you. Another one, this one from Winston. Is this solution available today? Anybody?
I can take that one. So everything we demonstrate today obviously is available and generally available and can be purchased today. We are working on, obviously with any kind of orchestration, we're working on additional capabilities. Yeah, everything's available today, and we're using it in production with customers.
All right, great. And I think we can squeeze in one last question here. Are there public customer references of companies taking this approach? Maybe Chuck?
Sure. Yeah. As I mentioned on our website, we have on the Cisco, on www.cisco.com/go-SAP, we have a bunch of materials, including some testimonials of hosting providers and partners that are using this approach, in addition to Deloitte, obviously. And those references are available. Specifically, we're working closely with Dimension Data and a partner in the United States, hosting partner called CenturyLink. So those public references are available, and I think you'll see over time that a number of other providers will make their use of the capabilities public.
Okay, very good. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this session. So if we didn't get to your question during the live broadcast, someone will follow up with you over the next few business days. For more information, you can see here the resources that are appearing here before you. And we want to thank you all for attending today's webinar, How to Simplify SAP S/4HANA Deployments with Policy-Based Automation, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by SAP, Deloitte Consulting, and Cisco. Shortly after this live event, we'll send you an email reminder to access this presentation on demand. And on behalf of our guests, Carl Dubler of SAP, Chuck Geringer of Cisco, and Sunny Patwari of Deloitte Consulting, LLP, we want to thank you for your time. Good morning, good afternoon.